When people repeatedly face stressors, failures, uncontrollable circumstances like shitty dieting attempts, toxic relationships, chronic illness, whatever that is, they may internalize this belief that nothing I do matters. Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, the podcast where we debunk the eat less, move more, shrink more mentality and focus on what really matters, which includes your relationship with your body, food, self-worth, and the behaviors that align with all of those. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, licensed therapist with specialized training in food and body obsession, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. At the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, we believe what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. So let's have a conversation about that. Before we get into today's episode, I want to make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also, if you don't want to miss any content that's being dropped, make sure you hit that notification bell as well. I also want to know who are the people you want to hear from on this show and what topics would you like me to continue to cover. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now, let's get into the episode. Well, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. I'm so excited that you took this time to learn something for yourself today, right? Learn something for your mind is what I was trying to say, so you can change what you see in the mirror. And I'm excited to chat today. This episode is brought to you by a church sermon that I recently listened to, and I thought, oh my, this absolutely needs to be talked about on the episode. It is not a spiritual nor religious conversation, but it can be if that is your thing. And if you guys want to talk about spirituality, because it is a big part of my life, I'd love to chat about that with you. So if that is something you want to hear more about, like DM me or comments and I can do some more podcasts on it. I've done a few like on manifesting and things like that, but I am someone who reads the Bible. I'm someone who uses faith very, very much in my life, throughout my life. It has helped me a lot. But anyhow, for those of you new to this podcast, I usually start the pod just talking about my life because I want you to kind of get to know me. You trust me with this information, kind of know what's going on in my life. So if you're not interested in hearing that, you can look at the show notes to go to the topic today, which again is the 3 thoughts that are affecting your relationship. But if you're not interested, you can go to the show notes below and fast forward to our topic, which are the 3 thoughts that fuel that inner critic of yours. And this is a good one, so you're going to want to listen. So I want to talk about my dogs. Weird, I know. So my little Liberty is in school. She is there right now, and she goes to school 3 days a week. I think that she loves school because anytime I tell her it's time to go to school, she gets very excited. It's been about 2 weeks. I feel like she is not learning anything because the girl she was on one this morning. She did not want to walk because I walk her in Harlem. Harlem's in her cart. Harlem's right next to me, like a loaf of bread. Harlem is in her cart, and Libby is, watch your foot, baby. Her little cast. And Libby is walking. And this morning, she just literally she just kept running into the cart, whatever. But we'll see what happens because, just like workouts and muscles and all those things, it is not built in one day. But let me tell you, that little girl is so much joy. I can't even explain to you this dog. Just through everything that has been going on in the world. And with me, she's just been a godsend. Now, I love my little chunky girl over here to the right. But as you can see, her job is to just lay here. And when she is ready to give you lovin's, she will. She's like a cat. Like I say, she's very much like a cat. But I'm just so thankful for Liberty. I'm also really thankful for being able to have hard conversations with friends. I have, with a lot that's going on in the world, started to not second guess. There are associations that my brain made about certain people because of certain ideologies. And instead of assuming that, certain people believed in certain ideologies, I had conversations. Weird, I know. And asked them very sensitively, like, hey, I see that this is really important to you, but I also know that the thing that's important to you has been, has made this statement or this statement or this statement. Like, where do you stand with that? And that's been really cool. I'm not going to say it's been perfect. There are some people who make assumptions that I'm like angry or whatever it is, but really, a lot of people have been open to the conversation where I'm like, hey, I don't understand this. And I see that you post about it. Can you tell me a bit more about it? And it's really just to understand different sides of things and create my own thoughts about it. Once I get everyone's, not that I'm getting everyone's opinion to then make, you know what I'm saying, you guys. Like, I want to hear both sides of the story to come up with my own hypothetical or not hypothetical, educated decision on whatever it is. And it's been cool. So I highly recommend that if you can. If you can, that's the biggest thing. If you can. If you can't keep your composure, don't do it. So that is something that I have been doing this past week. All right. So I think that's it. I am going to a really cool festival this weekend called Lady World with my girlfriend Elena plus some of her friends from Boston. Shout out to them if they're listening. And it's going to be a whole bunch of like podcasters and comedians. I'm going to see Hannah Berner and Stassi Schroeder, which I'm super stoked about, as well as Chicks in the Office, who is someone I listen to often. Justin Sylvester will be there. So I'm very excited about it. It's really cool because it's like, I'll have to tell you guys what it actually was, but you have a little quad of like 4 chairs that's roped off and you can decorate your area, and you have an app and all of your food, merch, drinks all goes through the app. Then during the day they're doing like pickleball, yoga, Pilates, hot girl walks, glow up stations, manifestation stuff. So we're signed up for all these events. It's going to be so much freaking fun. I'm so, so excited. So, all right, let's get into it today. Like I said, I wanted to talk about this particular subject because it was something that, I listened to my client Amy, my previous client Amy and friend introduced me to Journey Church, West Palm Beach, and I absolutely love them. Shout out to them. I love how they explain things. Well, I was listening to them and then it was on YouTube. So then I was finished with that week's sermon and then it went to this other guy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I freaking love this. I have no idea who the guy is. So I apologize. But I was like, I have not talked about this at all. And it's this idea of like what fuels our inner critic, right? What are the ways that we think that make our inner critic almost impossible to let go of? Not fully impossible, but feels like it's almost impossible to let go of. So walk with me. It's 11 p.m., right? You're lying in bed, but your brain is buzzing, right? I thought I'd be further along by now, right? I thought I'd figure this eating thing out by now. I thought I'd feel more confident in my body right now. I thought I'd be happier once I got this promotion, right? And the more and more you think about whatever the thing is, it's like you feel heavy, right? You feel like you're in quicksand, right? And you are drowning. It is pulling you down. And it's starting to feel like defeat rather than just questioning, right? And there's a difference between the two, and we'll talk about that. But negative thought loops can feel very real, right? They can feel like the truth. But oftentimes they're just mental traps, right? They distort your reality. They activate that kind of survival mode in the nervous system, and they make you feel just so tired. They drain your energy that could be being put towards your recovery, your creativity, your presence, your workout, whatever, right? So first, I want to introduce a concept called learned helplessness. Then we'll get into the 3 thoughts or types of thoughts that affect this. So learned helplessness is a psychological phenomenon where a person stops trying to change or escape a negative situation. Okay. The reason why is because in their brain, they're conditioned to believe that their actions won't make a difference. And we can see this all over the place. We can see this in weight. We can see weight loss. We can see this in trying to get a good relationship with food, a relationship with another person. We can see this in politics even, right? We feel like there's nothing we can do, so we don't try anything at all. And learned helplessness was first discovered, or studied by Martin Seligman in the 60s, and they studied dogs and they subjected dogs to unavoidable shocks. So later, when escape was possible for these dogs, the dogs didn't try to escape. They had learned they were helpless. So sad. So sad. But from a human experience, when people repeatedly face stressors, failures, uncontrollable circumstances like shitty dieting attempts, toxic relationships, chronic illness, whatever that is, they may internalize this belief that nothing I do matters, right? That was really hard to say. So, the core features of learned helplessness is this perceived lack of control, belief that efforts won't change any of our outcomes, right? It's never going to change, right? And this distorted way of thinking, right? These kind of global statements that explain, this internal part of you, like, I always fail, it will never change, it's my fault. And then from there, a behavior withdrawal, right? So reducing motivation, reducing your effort, reducing your engagement, and then the emotional impact of that, of course. So increased risk of feeling depressed, feeling anxious, feeling burnt out, or coping with disordered coping, really what it is, with binging, dissociating, overexercising, whatever that may look like. Now, examples of this are people who in the health and wellness industry, right? Like you, the person listening, after years of maybe something like yo-yo dieting, failed diets, you just stop altogether. You assume that your body is broken, right? And I hear this all the time. Like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. It's not going to make a difference. In the workplace, an employee is ignored by leadership, and so they don't give ideas anymore, right? The leadership might ask them for their input later, but because they're constantly ignored, they're like, doesn't matter. They're not going to do anything with this anyways. Or maybe you're up for a promotion or there's a job opening and you keep putting yourself in the position to get the job opening and you don't get it maybe one or two times. And then the third time you're like, well, I'm not going to get it anyways. So you don't even try. And relationships, right? You're stuck in a cycle of rejection. So you just stop pursuing connection. You stop pursuing another person, a relationship, love, marriage, because you're convinced that you'll always be unwanted. Okay. The problem with learned helplessness is it erodes self-efficacy, right? The belief that our actions can influence our results. I believe in that wholeheartedly. I tell clients all the time, you are not your thoughts, you're the thinker of your thoughts, and therefore you have an actionable step to control your thoughts. Without that belief, that you can influence your actions, people default to being passive. They default to being stuck in these really painful cycles. And I know because I am someone who used to think this way. So I want to break down the 3 P's of negative thinking that come with learned helplessness. So these are the 3 types of thoughts that just make that inner critic loud as can be. And in the church sermon, he talks about the enemy, or as we know it, the devil. And when the enemy is in your brain, the enemy is trying to make what we're talking about concrete in your head. For those of you who are not religious, it's your inner critic, right? So what it wants to do is make these thoughts personal. It wants you to believe that this is happening because there's something wrong with you. You are broken. You are a failure. You are unlovable. Then it wants to make it permanent. You will always be this way. You will always be unlovable. You will always be single. And then it wants to make it pervasive. If this is, this is part of my life, this part of my life is failing. So all of my life is failing. Well, I'm not married, so I'm a failure. I haven't lost the weight, so I'll never feel confident, right? So some more experiences, like I binged again. I'll always struggle with food. I'm a failure in every area of my life. And that might sound really dramatic, but it happens all the time. If it didn't happen, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you. With work, my boss didn't love my presentation. I'm incompetent. I'll never succeed. Or relationships. He didn't text me back. I'm never, he doesn't like me. And people always leave me. They always leave me, right? And would we begin to have this fixed way of thinking, our brain begins to detect a pattern, right? Our brain is a pattern detecting machine, if you will. It tries to create meaning even when that meaning is distorted, right? Those negative loops come from negative bias, right? And if you would think about it this way, evolution has wired us to focus on threats, right? So the problem though is now if we're focusing on threats, instead of there being predators, the threats are unmet goals, their body dissatisfaction, their fear of not measuring up. There there are so many things. So our brain starts to recognize, oh, it's not a predator, but look at me. I failed again at the diet. I failed again at the relationship. I failed again at the promotion, potential promotion. And it starts recognizing those patterns and then creating negative loops surrounding those patterns to make them even more real, if you will. Beautiful, beautiful listener and viewer, I'm asking you a huge favor. I am doing the American Cancer Society 300-mile ride in the month of October. What this consists of is over the course of the month, I have to ride 300 miles on my bike. And I'm doing this in an effort to help with funding research for cancer treatment. As you guys know, I lost my father to cancer a few months ago, and this is mine and my brother's way of supporting cancer research in hopes that people do not have to go through what we went through as a family. So if you would be so kind, whether it's 50 cents, a dollar, whatever it is that you can donate, check out the GoFundMe link in my show notes. The GoFundMe goes directly to the American Cancer Society. This is a link that they provided. My tush, thanks you in advance. Now, let's get on with the show. I want you to think of this, as I always say, is it's not bad that our brain is doing this. It's a protective mechanism. The problem is that those spirals, those thought spirals, convince you that the thing you're going through, the pain, the rejection, the sense of abandonment is permanent when it's really very, very, very temporary. Okay. So I want, though, to differentiate between like normal stress versus the sense of destructive hopelessness. So distress, right? Normal stress response. This week sucked. I feel off, but I'll be fine. I know I'll recover, right? And as someone who has gone through grief, it felt very real. It really felt like I was never going to recover. But in the back of my mind, I knew that I'm not going to recover. You don't recover from grief, but you know what I mean? I wasn't going to be living in that bone-wrenching, heart-aching grief that I was in. Does it come up sometimes? Yes, but you get what I'm saying. So distress, normal response. Despair, however, is distress plus hopelessness, right? So this week sucked. It's always going to be this way. Why even bother, right? So if we're looking at this from a nervous system lens, distress, normal, puts you in fight or flight, right? Gives you some like restless energy, makes you feel a little bit off, but you can problem solve and, bring your body into a more sympathetic or parasympathetic place to calm down, to relax, to chill, right? Despair, however, puts you into freeze or shutdown. And I've said it before, freeze is when your brain thinks you cannot get out of it. Think of playing dead. Why do animals play dead? Because they're already under the hand of the lion. So they play dead in an effort to survive. So despair drops you into freeze or shutdown. So numbness, apathy, binge eating, doom scrolling, avoidance, all of this happens in freeze or shutdown. And for a lot of you listeners, you have been tolerating distress for years, pushing through, performing, managing, right? But when distress crosses over into despair, that's when we burn out. That's when we burn out. I don't fucking care anymore. I can't change. I can't win. And we really need to recognize the difference between the two, because the latter can cause depression, true depression. I've seen it and I'm going to say something controversial, when they're depressed and they feel like there's nothing they can do. And then they get a diagnosis of depression and then they think there's nothing they can do. Get it? So then guess what? They don't do anything. So guess what? It gets worse. So guess what? The hole is deeper. Okay. But if we look at distress, that's survivable. But we have to intervene. It's the despair that convinces you that it's not. Okay. So again, to bring it back, the three thoughts that we need to be aware of are personal, permanent, and pervasive. Are we thinking in that way? And then also recognizing, am I in a distress place or have I crossed over to despair? Very, very important. So, how we want to shift our thinking is through neuroplasticity, something that I've talked about many, many times. Neuroplasticity means your brain learns by repetition, right? And I've talked about it like driving down a field. The field doesn't have a road. You need to make a road. You've got to drive down the field and it's going to feel really bumpy. It's going to like the debris is going to be flying. You're going to be like, oh, I don't know if I can handle this. And then you get to the end and you're like, okay, I've kind of created my road, but I got to do it over and over again in order to create my road. But if you continue to allow those personal, permanent, and pervasive thought loops to run in your brain unchallenged, right? Meaning you're not intervening, those neural pathways will get deeper. They will be like, you have now dug the road out. It is deep. But one thought, different, repeated in that whole loop, that negative bias loop, can create that new track. So, what do we need to do? We need to catch the thought. You are the thinker of your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. Say it with me. Hallelujah. You know, I thought I'd be a really good preacher. I've got to learn the Bible first, but maybe I'll just be a motivational speaker. That's probably better, right? Would you guys come and watch me if I was a motivational speaker? Anywho, catch a thought. Oh, I'm getting personal with myself. I'm getting permanent with myself. I'm getting pervasive with myself. I'm in that loop, right? And pervasive could be, I mean, we don't say that word a lot. You can make it, I'm predicting, right? I'm predicting that everything is wrong, right? Maybe just use pervasive. Anyways, step 2 is interrupt it. So I say this, and a client said it the other day, so I want to say it again. It's not the first thought that matters. It's the second thought, which is what am I going to do with that first thought? That's incredibly important, guys. So if the first thought is, I'm this, I'm that, it's always, it's never, then interrupt it with a new thought. Then I thought, I can get through this. This might suck, but I'm going to be okay. It's intense right now, but it will come down. This person's not the person for me. And now I have clarity and I can move on. That was a big one for me when I was dating. Like I used to get so distraught about guys that like didn't want to be with me. And then I did my work on myself and I was like, anytime somebody and I didn't work out, I was like, well, that's just not my person. That's just not my person. Why would I force not my person to be my person? Because that seems like coercive, right? So, all right. Third thing is anchor it to evidence. Shift the hopelessness to possibility, right? So again, an example, I thought I'd never stop binge eating. Then I thought, I've had weeks where I haven't. My brain can learn that it's safe without binging on food, right? I thought I'd always be burnt out. Then I thought, I've set some boundaries the past couple of weeks, and those worked. I thought I'd never feel confident in myself. Then I thought, I've already proven I can do hard things. So I'm going to go on with that. These are all things that I've talked to with clients, right? First, I thought, if I get off of routine, I'm never going to get back on. Then I thought, I have been on my routine for 10 days and took one day off and jumped right back on. So I'm just going to string the next 10 days together. This is literally a conversation I had a couple weeks ago. So use that. Catch the thought, then I thought, and anchor it with evidence that you're doing that. I have used this in my struggles because I remember being like, honestly, right now, again, comes back to grief. Losing my dad is one of the hardest things that's ever happened to me. So honestly, right now, I'm like, what the fuck? Bring it on. I can literally almost do anything at this point. If I can get through that, I can literally do anything at this point. Let's go. Right? That's where I'm at. Now, you may not have to go through what I've gone through, but you've gone through hard things and you've come out on the other side. Even my clients who have really strong pulls towards disordered eating and body image, there are days, and this is why we're so into exploring your wins and where things are happening positively in the right direction, even if small. So I have a client who has been in treatment for many, many years with an eating disorder. And this weekend she went to a wedding and she ate the food at the wedding. Now, she has some allergies to certain foods, so she didn't have those foods, but she ate something that she didn't prepare, that someone else prepared, and she ate the whole thing. Steak and potatoes. We love that for her. Her mom is cooking dinner and she's eating the meal instead of making her own. Huge, huge success, right? Whereas the eating disorder wants her to believe you're never gonna be able to do this. But she's showing herself that. So the thing again is we don't need to erase the negative thought. We just need to teach our brain what comes next. All right. So ways to do this are micro pauses. So when you hear always or never in your thinking, pause, breathe, and label it. I have to tell you guys something that my client McKenna said the other day, and I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. Let me find it real quick. Okay. So the question was, what did you do this week that aligned with your goals? This cycle interruption, so what we're talking about today, made me think of a strategy we use with patients who experience urinary urgency. Pause, squeeze, distract. So I've been using pause as a time to recognize what I'm feeling or that I'm in that cycle loop that she and I talked about, this negative cycle loop. Then I work on diaphragmatic breathing and drink some water or both. I like help coming up with the distract, which is something that we talk about. So the pause, squeeze, breathe, distract, for her could be focusing on that win. That can distract you. Like, oh, look at me. I just did that. Like, great. So again, pause, breathe, label it. This is a personal thought, a never thought. It feels permanent. It is not. Try this 3 by 3 shift. So write 3 things down of your personal, permanent, pervasive thoughts, and then reframe each to the then I thought and repeat them daily for them to become like more, not neurological, I guess just neural grooves, neural pathways. That's the word I'm trying to find. Brain is challenged. Not always. This is not permanent. My brain is just challenged right now, and that is okay. See? And then tool number 3, like, I'm still here. I'm still here, right? Instead of looking for perfection as proof, use resilience. Like, I'm still here. That means I can keep going. Great. It anchors your identity in like endurance rather than a flawless like performance. Just, I'm still here. So I'm just going to keep going. And it's like Albert Einstein says, like, I didn't fail. It's like Albert Einstein said, failure is success in progress. You never fail until you stop trying, right? So use that. I'm still here and I'm going to just continue to try different things. So again, the pervasive, permanent, personal thoughts are mental traps. They are not truth. Distress is survivable. Despair feels like it is not. But an excellent way to interrupt that is recognizing or creating the second thought. At first, I thought this, then I thought, enter something that is a bit more realistic. It interrupts the cycle and rewires your brain. This is a great thing to journal this week. Like, what am I making that is too personal, too permanent, too pervasive, right? And where am I letting, one problem color my whole life? Where am I assuming that things are permanent in my life? Okay. Then write down the thoughts that are connected to the permanent, the personal, the pervasive, then create and then I thought for each one of those. So that 3 by 3. Now, just recognize your brain may default to fear, control, negativity, but it can very, very much learn safety. It can learn safety. It can learn perspective. It can learn resilience. You can teach it this. And I'm telling you this because I've done this for myself. And every time you say, then I thought, and you're going to hear my fucking voice in your head, then I thought, just like that, then I thought, you are breaking that cycle, right? You are rewiring. You're creating that new neural pathway. And that, my dear, is how we break that inner critic. So I hope you found this fascinating. I sure did. And I'm just so thankful to have been offered this information, or reminded really this information, and being able to share it with you. And because I love sharing with you guys, I would just ask in return that you, if you could, hit those download buttons. Make sure you're listening to these podcasts all the way through. That helps a lot. Or YouTube's all the way through. Like them, subscribe, follow, comment, review, all the things. That is just going to help me. You know, I'm going on a year and a half in this podcast, and it is everything. I put my heart and soul into it, and I want to get the word out to more people. I have some amazing guests. Amazing. Thank God, honestly, for my ballsiness, because I just slide into people's DMs, and they are coming on. So I'm excited for that. If you are interested in coaching with me and my team, please check out the show notes below, and we'll talk about your goals. We'll talk about what I think would be the best approach for those goals, and what would be the best program that fits your needs. And you will at least walk away with understanding the mindset piece behind your struggles. So, hey, it's free. Well, technically you have to put down a $25 deposit to hold your spot, but you get it back. It's refundable. Other than that, I'm going to leave you the same way I do every single week and remind you that what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. Bye-bye.